Hey guys, Matt, IronTrap Garage. We are working on Dad's Daily again, and last time you saw Mike and I blew apart the front suspension and got all the pieces taken apart, and we were waiting on a drop axle from Andy Kohler Kustom, and Andy was able to get this a dropped axle made for us. He does the axles the old school way, where he has a jig set up and he heats and drops them like they would have done back in the day using original Henry Ford axles, which is the way that I prefer and probably is the nicest way to do it. So we got our axle back from Andy. It looks kick-ass. It is ready to go. He dusted in some black paint just to keep it from flash rusting. And what we need to do today is basically get all these parts looking just as good as that front axle. So we have the dirty job of cleaning all these parts up, getting them all cleaned up and ready to go. And then we're going to be using Eastwood's Rust Encapsulator Plus to coat everything. We're just doing this like, my idea with this car is, I've been kind of saying it to some people that come by the shop, a high school hot rod. So we're going to basically make it look like, you know, some kind of high school kid or kid in his early 20s built this car. Maybe my dad when he was, you know, when he was a kid. And what we're going to do is not go overboard with it. So we're going to be brushing on this Rust Encapsulator Plus. It's going to seal up any rust that'll be left from us wire wheeling and cleaning stuff, but it's also going to just give it that kind of satin look like the front axle has here, and it'll keep it sealed up so it doesn't rust, and also just give it that, you know, just real simple, early, subdued look, which would be cool. But we have a big job ahead of us to clean all these parts up and get everything all ready to go. We also need to more than likely heat and drop these spindles. So once I get them cleaned up, we're going to test fit them on the axle, and then we'll have to heat and drop those before we actually paint them. But we'll get everything else all cleaned up, and hopefully by the end here, we'll be able to bolt this all together and roll it underneath the car and see how low it sits. I can't wait. touching the, oh yeah, we're almost touching the thing there. So that's plenty. We're almost in the steering style. All right.
So why don't we let that cool, and then we'll heat it back here and do our twist.
Yep.
Toward.
All right, so this is still hot. It's smoking. So we just wanted to show you guys for this type of drop on this drop axle, like every one of these drop axles is different, and I do it different almost every time, depending on the drop in the axle. So with this axle being a real quick drop on this, we don't have all the room for steering on this as with some of the other axles that are actually like taffy pulled. So with this, the way we did it is we heated right where from the factory it comes out and drops down. Well, all we did was just tighten up this bend here. So we were heating right near the base, bending down to get it to bend down and clear. And what we did is we were checking like this, and we have clearance. And you can see our steering stop is almost touching, and all that's really holding us back here is how this arm is touching right there. But we have almost full lock to lock, which is really, really good for a drop axle. So now that this is cooled up in here, or isn't, hot enough to actually move the metal, now we can go down further and heat somewhere in here, and Mike can twist this section here so that the tie rod will actually fit back in and it'll be parallel across. So we're gonna get this side fitted and sitting how we want, then we can put the tie rod underneath, and we will check for our clearances on the other one to make sure that it has the same drop and clearance underneath it here so that they're both aligned and parallel with each other. So just want to show you guys this.
If we need to add more drop, we don't need to twist it anymore. We can heat back here and go down and then bring the end back up again.
Just move it a little bit, but I think we're right in the ballpark. Like I said, we could probably heat a little bit and get a tiny bit more out of it, but not much. That's almost touching the stop, and I would bet that most cars that are dropped back in the day don't even have that much steering.
Depending on how low we make it, you may
not
not
turn this much anyway. So yeah, it's definitely sufficient. I'm happy with it. So we're gonna get this turned back around, then we'll go over to that side, and hopefully we get this thing set up pretty good here. That's it. That's it. Keep going. It's still hot. As I said, when it pops, we're out of gas. It lets you know.
Oh, yeah.
Is that it? Got the last little bit of gas. Cool. Yeah. Under it's like 7/8 roughly. Yeah, you don't want to make that one too tight because we're gonna. Oh yeah, we're there. Within like a 16th or so.
Turn it, see what it does.
That's almost touching there. It's
Yeah,
basically
touching there.
Okay.
And we don't hit any of the wishbones.
Yeah, it actually hits here, the arm before it hits the
Yeah.
stop, but it's,
Just hits the stop first.
yeah, so we're right there. I don't think we're gonna turn that far anyways. Get all these together, I have a real long, a couple of, second or third drawer down, I have a real long, like Phillips head screwdrivers to use for a guide.
Locating.
Yeah. So we'll stick them down. So let that drop down and then get those clamps. I can compress this self. Do you want to grab somewhere?
I guess I didn't have to take, no, I do have to take the bolts out.
No. Well, if they'll slip through, you don't have to.
Normally I'd say this isn't my first rodeo, but this is kind of like my first rodeo.
Actually, just take them out one day. cross member. Let's see. Not as much as I expected. Actually, it's probably about right.
It's got rake.
Well, yeah, because the rear's in stock. But there's barely tire gap.
Yeah.
We don't have any, there's going to be more weight on the front end. Can't really push down. Okay, we lied. We realized that there's risers underneath, so we need to put something under the car like a jack. Are you free?
No.
My side is.
Mine's getting there. All right. You want to just take it out or leave it there?
No, let's take.
Want me to swing the lift arm out or?
Well, actually, just take the riser off.
Okay.
Let's take the paddle completely out of the arm.
All right, done.
All right. Now let's see where we. Step 2. Oh. That's perfect. That's just how I want it to sit. Just almost tucking, it's just tucking the tread. That's real good. Oh yeah. All right, so I got the car back up in the air after we got the rear end lowered down, and I'm going to show you guys the back end of the car. They ended up using basically just a stock rear spring setup with the Chevy rear, and yeah, so shouldn't be too bad. The spring clamp is really easy to get to on these 46 to 48s. It's not like stuck up in a cross member. It's kind of just like a flat, like box tubing type setup. So what we could do is I'm going to loosen these bolts, get them broken free while it's in the air, just so I can get to it easily. I'm going to disconnect these shocks, which, well, here we go. I'm going to disconnect these shocks. Job done, just like they do on TV. That one's a little harder, but apparently there was no bushings in these shocks. Great. So I'm going to disconnect the shocks. I'll loosen these bolts here. Drop it down, you let the rear drop down a little bit so I can get access to this center spring bolt, clamp bolt, and I can take that out, let the spring pack come apart with some C-clamps like we always do, and then I'm going to take this main leaf off and put that Old Yankee reverse eye in there. Of course, I remembered that I left it in the trunk, so I have to let it down anyway. So we'll put some new bushings in the rear spring, the new rear spring, and then we'll put it back up in here, and I'm going to probably take a couple of leaves out as well to get it down just a little bit more. These things are generally really stiff from the factory, so if you take a couple of leaves out, 2-3 leaves out to drop it down, it doesn't hurt anything in my experience. We'll also need to disconnect this sway bar for now because it may need to change with lowering the car. I'm not sure yet, but I'll probably leave that disconnected. So I'm going to work on getting these bolts loose, and we'll see if we can get the back end looking as good as the front end here real quick. right, so we got Dad's car sitting down in the weeds, looking good. I'm really happy with how the rear end of the car sits. To be completely honest, after staring at it for like a day or so, I think the front end actually sits just a hair too low. And one of the things that's causing that is I have 5/60/15 front tires on it, which is kind of the common size that I've used on the 34. I have it on Sweetheart Roadster, used on a bunch of different vehicles, and it works really well with the 820/15s in the rear, 5/60/15s in the front. But on this car, with it being having really fat fenders and everything and a bigger front end, it just makes the tires just like look a little too small. So I think what'll make this thing just like perfect is if I go up one size in the front and go to, I think it's 620s or something like that. I forget what it is, but go up basically one side, or no, 590s, that's what it is. So go up to like 590s and it'll raise the car up just a little bit, and it'll fill the wheel well up a little bit as well, and it'll probably look pretty darn good that way. But I'm happy that we got the rear suspension in, got the front suspension in. Now at least it's sitting and looking good. We got new bushings and all the stuff put in the front and the rear, so like all that's pretty much done. And we could start working on some of the other stuff in the front end. So we're gonna be working on the brakes here soon. I actually got a steering box from a viewer, Will. He was nice and donated a steering box that he had left over from his project car that came with it. So we're probably gonna work on putting a factory steering box that's complete with the original drop, all that stuff back in this car, so that it is a little less 80s looking, if you will, and it'll look kind of old school like we like to do. So a lot of work to do yet. Really happy. Hopefully my dad doesn't think that it's too low, because it needs to sit right if it's a car I'm involved in. So I'm just gonna have to listen to him complain if he doesn't like it, because it's gonna sit how it's gonna sit. So thank you guys for following along. Appreciate everybody that's really excited about Dad's Daily. I'm super excited. I can't wait till, I think my dad's coming home in like mid-May or late May. He's going to be back from Florida, so when he gets back, he's going to be jumping in and helping me with the project, and he can actually see it in person for the first time since we dug it out over at Carl's house, which I'm really excited about. Thanks guys for watching. Catch you later.